Philadelphia.
Philly. And what inspired the Philly talk, do you think?
Well, we did PCX last year. The PCX show is always really fun. I don't know. I just like to support these shops in general. Like, anytime I go to a new area, I want to go to that shop. And I was in Philadelphia last weekend to go see Monkey Man.
Nice.
And
was that?
swung by the shop. Monkey Man's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I could use like one more fight scene, but in general,
see.
I thought it was cool.
I want to also, it's like, we want to shine a light on scenes too, right?
Yes.
We've wanted to talk about Philly since we started the channel. We were like, that's on our list, right? Mm-hmm. And Philly has such a robust scene. So many cartoonists have moved there within the past few years, and they had a lot of native cartoonists as well.
Yeah.
So who's moved to Philly recently?
I mean, the names I don't know as well.
Tedward, Josh Pettinger himself.
Yep, I know Carolyn Cash lives there.
Pee Poo Poo.
Nick Bunch.
I think
picked up that new one.
I think he's a Philly guy, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
he's OG Philly guy.
I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know everyone's, history, but I do know that we've seen the migration of cartoonists to Philly, and I think Caroline said something really funny, which was, I was done with Chicago and I was too poor to live in New York, so Philadelphia it was,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a joke that Philadelphia is like the affordable New York. Like we had a brief flirtation with like, oh, maybe we'll move to Philly, and partly instigated by spending a weekend there for PCX last year, and like, wow, we could actually buy a house here.
Philly
and,
rules.
Not get out of the fucking renting rat race.
I love Philly. Every time I go, I have a great time. Everybody's rowdy, It's like you can feel the energy. Mm-hmm. The great food. Like, I've had some of the best sandwiches and pizza that I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, food's great. The drinks are affordable. Bars got good vibes, good atmospheres.
Yeah, it's a rowdy town.
Yeah, it's cool. And WrestleMania was there all weekend, and so my buddy and I we walked out of Partners and Son, and there was like a street fair, and there was a wrestling match going on. Backyard style, like
amazing.
But it was no joke. Like, they were suplexing each other and shit. Like, it was they were going all in for it. And then we didn't realize it was WrestleMania yet. And then we soon realized that WrestleMania was in town. And then like everyone in Philly was wearing WrestleMania stuff and like wrestling stuff and like old school wrestling gear. And I don't know that much about wrestling, but I love wrestling. And I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like totally fascinated by it. And it was great. It felt like the town had a vibe. Like, New York never has a vibe in that way. Like, if there's WrestleManias here, if you go to Madison Square Garden, you'll know WrestleMania's here.
Sure.
But if you're walking around Manhattan, you have no idea WrestleMania's here.
Well, I think, like, in New York, there's so many neighborhoods. It's so big that each neighborhood feels like a little town.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever with New York. I've been here 20 years. I'm tired of it. I'm so exhausted by New York. Honestly, like, everywhere I go, there's a truck following me around with a bunch of construction machines all blaring at the same time.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about how New York is annoying. We're here to talk about comics. So let's start with this one.
Yeah.
Look at how shiny it is.
And it's I love a is that a spot gloss or a spot?
This is
Graham.
This is a foil emboss.
Foil emboss. Okay.
Yeah, but this is the Silver Sprocket edition.
Oh.
And so
before the other edition?
No, this is after. So Caroline published these on their own, and then hooked up with Silver Sprocket for these shiny bits. So you get like a prismatic foil emboss there.
It's like a Trapper Keeper.
Exactly.
Color, yeah.
This rules. And so, referencing some classic comic covers here, right?
And one of my favorite things about these Pee Pee Poo Poo comimics is that the numbers are just made up. Like issue 69, issue
885.
Yeah.
And I think the one I'm missing is issue 420.
420,
Yeah, which I'll have to get Caroline next time I see you. Caroline is like a rising star in the comics world, and when you look at the comics, you understand why. But what you maybe don't get from the comics is just one of the kindest, coolest, funniest people I've ever met. I mean, present company included. I'm just kidding.
I've only met them in passing. I've never had a conversation.
No, Caroline is rad, and it makes me always want to champion their work, but the work is also awesome, so it's not hard to do.
So I don't have these. Tell us about these books.
So these follow the adventures of a character, which seems pretty
autobiographical.
It seems pretty autobiographical. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff like in here they're talking about, you know, being a gay virgin in 2010 and how Victoria's Secret was like so totally made them feel weird, which is awesome.
I also felt weird going to Victoria's Secret
yeah,
in 2010.
anytime I walk by a Victoria's Secret, I was like, I don't know what to do. And so these are experiences like, you know, exploring their identity, you know, interacting with like people at bars and stuff. It's very, it feels very much like your 20s, you know, like house parties and bars and stuff.
It has a really pleasant style. Like the shapes are really nice. The character shapes are really solid. Like this, it has like a really welcoming approach, I guess, to just like the way the panels are laid out. Like this is also, you know, totally my shit. Like jam packed full of stuff. I love a panel full that's just really every detail is considered. Like you don't have to put those leaves there. Having those little leaves hanging down from a pot or a plant or something like that. Like, it's great. Like every space. You can feel the drawing joy in here. It's not like, oh, I got to get this comic done. I got to finish it. You can feel there's like, it's not overly labored, but there's a joy to putting in those details.
Yeah, and it looks fantastic. I mean, like you're saying, like I love an infographic style panel where you got little bits, you know, like showing. I mean, that's the character of the environment. This is only in comics do you get these little label boxes, you know, which
and like I just love these details too. Like these pockets on these pants, like those are not when I draw
riveted.
pockets. Yeah, when I draw pockets on pants, it's just like, oh, there's like they're all the same. These are specific pockets to a different kind of pant. I don't know. That's a nice little addition.
it's good.
Take the extra step.
These are really refreshing, and I like that, you know, they lack that like neophyte urge to want to fill the pages with words. I feel like a lot of people when they're putting out their early works do that. They like it's just paragraphs and paragraphs. Like you were saying, the art is inviting, but there's also a nice flow. Like there's a nice interplay between the word balloons and boxes and the action and the characters. So there's a lot of great interplay there.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that. We were just talking about this. I just watched Crumb yesterday, and his brother, Charles, had sort of the opposite of that, where, like, there were very few words in it, and then as he kept making comics, like, it just becomes this sort of, like, fill the page with words thing, and then he just stops drawing, and it's just all words. Like, he goes in reverse and just
fully becomes a writer.
And then he starts filling notebooks up with just, like, gibberish. Like, they're scribbles that look like words.
I don't want to spoil all this, but these books rule, and I would support Caroline. Their books sell out too. You know, every time I go to their table, I'm like, I'll get it later in the show. You know, like I roll by the table when we're setting up, and then I'm like, sure, I'll come before we leave, before the fest is over, and then I go by and they're like, oh no, they're all gone, and I was like, okay, cool, right on, yes, good, awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely like a buzz around Caroline's work.
Yeah,
like I feel like any show, they're like a name.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, like definitely up, you know, rising star. Yeah, for sure.
Which is so cool. And the other thing I love about this world is that like the rising stars and the names and the people who are recognizable are still just people. Like,
very chill. Yeah.
They're not. There's no way for them to be like, oh, this guy. You know. So there's no money in this world, right? So no one's ever going to suspect you of coming up to them trying to get something from them. Yeah. Except a book that you want to read. Like, but you're never angling. You know, no one's going to come up to somebody who's recognizable and be like, oh, maybe you can hook me up with something. Like it's.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no.
And still, you know, people still though. They don't have to be kind when you first meet them.
Right.
And it seems like the people that are really set themselves apart from everyone else. And that's the vibe that I got from Jump Street with Caroline. She was just really kind and cool, like really chill. Like her and MS were both super kind to me. They didn't have to be, and they were. They're like great emissaries of comics in that way.
It's great. Fantastic.
Oh yeah. I mean, I said we're only talking about people who are kind on the show, remember?
Yeah. No jackasses.
So we started with a good one. All right. So what else did you get while you were there?
All right. So when I was there, I picked up this Nick Bunch.
Loving good Nick.
Now I know Nick's work mainly from this anthology, Cyanide Swamp, and also the Reptile House.
Yeah, we got a couple of Reptile Houses here.
So that's Nick's project, right? He's like the editor or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he compiles these together, and I mean, almost all of these kinds of books. They're like really well curated in the sense that it all fits together without having kind of like a unifying theme.
Right. Let the artists do their thing.
Yeah, let the artists do their thing, but it feels like a scene. Like it feels like cohesive, and it feels like they're not necessarily in dialogue with each other specifically, but it works. Like, this doesn't feel random.
And that's the curator, right? Like, that's where the editor comes in.
Mm-hmm. I've read this through a couple times. This Cyanide Swamp is amazing, and it's also a great overview of like the people in this scene. Like, if you go to Partner and Son, they have 2 gigantic shelves just jammed with stuff of like Philly artists, and it's like a little daunting.
That's
so if you're like looking for a place to start with what's going on in Philly, Cyanide Swamp and Reptile House are both great places to start because they're full of all these great contributors. There's tons of people in these. They're all great, and then you can branch out from there.
Yeah.
Also,
That has that Dreamy Guts in there, right?
Yeah. Dreamy Guts. Tia was working when I went to the shop. Super friendly. We chatted for a little bit.
Yeah, I like Tia's work a lot.
Yeah, and also helpful in pointing me towards some other work that I wasn't familiar with that I picked up too.
And you know, with Nick, one of the things that I like about Nick Bunch is that you can tell how curious he is and how obsessed with drawing he is.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
always posting like his exploratory drawings that lead him into the next place. Like for a while before this book came out, it was all desert scenes. He was drawing cacti and mountains and stuff. And so you'd see all these great drawings on his Instagram, and I was like, cool, where's this going? And then this book comes out, you know?
Yeah, so this is new. They just had I think a release party for this a week ago or a week and a half ago.
We got the scoop.
It was this book and this book came out at the same time as Derek Jones' book Nosebleed.
Oh, sick.
Both of which I don't know. I'm sure you can't see, but have fantastic paper stock on the cover. It's like not quite glossy, and it has this like I don't even know how to describe it. There's like you have fibers in it. Like it's a fibrous sort of like soft.
Cool
sort of
cardstock.
Anyway, this Nick Bunch book is really exciting, I think, and really inspiring. Again, jam-packed with details, tons of stuff.
Super fun cartooning, too.
Really fun, and really fun lettering. Like, I like, the handwriting of the artist. I'm a person who believes that, like, the text should always be on the page, on the original page.
What do you mean?
Like the dialogue should be written by the artist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, the hand of the artist is part
It's
of the
the
way
voice.
the characters speak. Yeah, it's the voice.
Hell yeah, I agree.
And I love that Nick, like, backwards lowercase e's. It's just like the way they talk is like fits the style of how it's drawn. Like it's not sloppy, but it's like this controlled roughness.
Yeah.
Really exaggerated emotional spaces, and they're just these 2 kind of like fuck ups, I guess, for lack of a better word. Kind of this first story is just about trying to get some beer from this guy, which like. They're in the desert, they're in the middle of nowhere, they're just trying to get, like, a beer from this guy. And this guy's face is totally gnarly. Like, he has this tiny little nose. I just love the choice to be like, I'm going to do these guys as rats, and I'm just going to lean in to that being that. You as an artist, you can draw any character you want to. Like, why rats? I don't know. But just, like, this guy's tiny, pokey nose and the way there's, like, depth to the cheek behind it. Like, it feels so tactile and yet so impossible to exist.
And it's something that would come from only him, right? Because it's
it's purely idiosyncratic to his style.
You can see that it's something he wants to draw, which is part of the secret for the cartoonist, I think. And like this might go without saying, or we might take this for granted, but I always tell everybody like it should be something you want to draw and enjoy drawing for thousands of times.
Yeah, and especially when you're putting this much detail in it, like. These panels are not fast. This is not fast. This is not a jerky, expressive way to draw. Like, these are tight, controlled. Like, this is time-consuming shit. I love the transition of these straight panel borders to when things get a little crazier. It's all jagged. Like, that adds so much to the feeling. Like, the jagged borders, the jagged balloons. Like, there's so much energy now that things are getting, like, a little bit more... The tension between this weirdo guy and the 2 fuck-up guys is, like, look at that shit. I mean, as this guy's turning sideways, he just becomes this, like, blur of... just gnarly tangled lines.
Yeah, that looks
so good.
That's so fun to draw.
So
too.
cool, yeah.
I've been seeing Nick's work on Instagram for a long time, and one of the things that I really like about their work is their use of color. Like you see it on the cover a little bit, but they've been exploring with watercolors as well.
Oh, interesting.
And I think you get a little of that texture in here, but I've been watching them explore color. And this book, I think I would, even though I love black and white, I would love to see this in color.
Yeah, this would be. I want this page as like a 5-color like screen print.
Oof.
I would hang that up in my house.
It's
like,
really
there's
cool.
So much energy to this page. There's so much shit going on, and so much movement too. I mean, so there's this guy. The guy who's trying to buy them the beer has this like shopping cart full of stuff, which is like his whole life, and it collides with the car, and you could draw this as a bunch of panels, but it makes it a really impactful thing right over here, and the reactions to it are just really strong. Super recommend this book. I read this on the bus. It was one of those things I read it through and then immediately read it through again because I just wanted to go back and pick up all these little details. There's one page. This is like really dazzling to me, the way he draws those.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
Pedaling the the bike wheels.
I mean, bikes are challenging to draw, and especially when they're in motion.
Yeah, it's almost like a shortcut, or it's like, I don't know. I could imagine thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna take a shortcut and not draw the bike, and then being like, wait a minute, this is way more challenging,
yeah,
way more work.
Way more work.
Great like bike chain, panel borders. Like that's not quick. This dude is putting in the work. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I highly recommend this book. I'm not gonna flip through it all. But...
And so, putting together and a standalone comic, editing and authoring and anthologies.
Two short stories, I think.
It's look at all this stuff, right? And I'm not sure which number they're up to with Reptile House, but I know I got this quite a while ago, so I've seen quite a few more. I think we have another one.
I think
flowing around here.
The most recent one, if I'm not mistaken.
I think there's one more.
I think this came out before. That's the Cyanide Swamp.
Okay.
Cyanide Swamp and this I got at the same show, which makes me think they came out around the same time.
All right, so we have issue 11 and we have issue 9.
Maybe not Winter 22. That's a little while ago.
Winter 22. Yeah, I think there's a couple more. Oh, one of the people I wanted to talk about in
Chubby Pumpers.
Yeah,
I love Chubby Pumpers.
Chubby Pumpers is great. Elliot is their name, and just one of my favorite artists.
Somebody I would love to print a sketchbook zine for.
Yeah, so Elliot, let's do it
if you're interested.
I love Chubby Pumpers, and I got one of their shirts. I have that John Lennon shirt that's like it's an E.C. Seeger drawing of Popeye that they like morphed into John Lennon. It's so funny. Anyway,
their stuff goes like viral, I guess, from time to time. Like I will see a page of theirs like everywhere for a week.
Yep.
I think one of them is in here. It's like, what do we want? Conscious Dubtronica. Oh. When do we want it for the next 15 minutes? Is that in this one? Maybe it's in Reptile House, I forget. Anyway,
so in this issue 11, we get a little tease of the desert rats in the back.
Yes, so that's actually part of that same story.
Okay, cool.
I don't think it's the whole thing, but...
Very cool.
It's awesome.
I brought a couple books by Steve Arnold. Now, Steve Arnold, I kind of met just through Instagram. I mean, I saw their work and thought it was amazing.
We talk about Instagram a lot on here, and I am not like a social. Sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all.
Like, it's hard for me to talk about that platform because it's so bad and it's so awful and so mind rotting, and it's owned by pieces of shit who just want to like rot your brain for money. But
of course,
in the world of like learning about cartoonists, communicating with cartoonists, becoming friends with cartoonists, like it's at the moment it's irreplaceable. It's like, it's actually really incredible for if you want to learn about this world and actually physically end up meeting up with these people. Like there's so many people I've like quote unquote met through Instagram that I've then gone on to meet in person at shows or bumping into wherever. Like it's kind of indispensable at the moment until something else comes along.
Yeah, I mean obviously like social media is a human need to connect, right? That has been monetized and corrupted. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's like every human need is monetized and corrupted, if you think about it, right?
Right. But the nice thing about comics is that there's still sincerity underneath of that.
Yes.
Or over top of that.
Well, I think, I was talking about this with I talk about this often, actually. And one of the things that we were saying is like, maybe there's not a hierarchy because you don't make money hand over fist like you do in some other industries.
Yeah.
And so it's inoculated against like all the jerks that would come out, the like capitalist angle shooters, you know? And so what's left is like, and also to make it's a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. So all of those things kind of line up to where it's like, it's a certain personality who would do all this work. Yeah. Right. For no money.
Right.
And just because they love it. So it kind of keeps out a lot of people that would be, ne'er-do-wells or unkind or unskillful or monsters or whatever. But we still get our fair share of those as well, don't we?
Apparently, yeah. I mean, I guess it's a smaller percentage because no one's trying to like, I don't know. I guess that's what I was trying to say earlier. Is like no one's trying to get over anybody else.
But it seems like the people who are trying to do that are the ones who usually end up coming out as problematic.
Yes,
True. So like when you see somebody who's like, I'm this guy and I'm gonna do blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, buddy,
all right.
And that's you kind of see that like hesitation in people when you meet them in the comics world because they're like, let me just see who you turn out to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's a medium that I think attracts interesting, unusual, and more often than not, just friendly people.
Yeah, I agree.
And everyone is making this stuff. Not everyone, but the the overwhelming sentiment I have, especially at big shows like Mocha, is that people are there. This is awesome. Is that people are there because they want to be there, not because they feel like they're going to get something out of it.
Yes.
And I think that's the beauty of when someone does become like a name or notable in this field, they're able to remain cool about it because there's really no space for it to like go to your head, or like there's no opportunity for you to be like surrounded by, you know, bodyguards and hounding fans or anything like that. There's no world in which like.
Wait, so I'm not going to be Taylor Swift after I'm done with my 100 Island comics?
I mean, you gotta set a goal.
I'm just kidding. I don't want to be Taylor Swift.
This book is great. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this is
So Steve is awesome. The comic is amazing, and it's kind of about this character, which again is kind of loosely autobiographical, as they stumble through the kind of questioning that you have from this lifestyle of your 20s that bleeds into your 30s, and it's like growing up and trying to like figure out what is going on in your head, and like how do you change your life from being a total bum to like doing something.
So what's the book called? It's called Perry something.
Well,
are they all different?
The character is called Perry, and then it's Perry midlife and Perry shitlife. So in this one,
but this is number 6.
Right, and so that's
7 of
7.
Oh, hot off the press.
This is hot press. That's their press imprint. Okay. So Steve works with a writing partner, but I think Steve did these on his own. So they put out this one recently. This is the most recent, actually. And it's quite a thick one, actually. This has got quite a few pages on it.
This is interesting. I like it both in color and in black and white.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's nice. I don't want to spoil the story of it because I feel like it's something that needs to be read.
Sure. This is interesting. Tell me, can you describe what's going on in this?
Right, so this is him talking to I believe this character is like a disembodied feeling or emotion, if I'm not mistaken. He's like talking to his own. Where was this again? You know, I read this when it first came out, and I haven't read it since.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So,
this is nice.
So,
really, it's cartoonist.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that this flipped open to this page.
Wow.
Yeah. So Steve did a really cool thing where he put out an email to everyone and was like, "Can I draw your character in a bar scene?"
Oh, cool.
So we have like MS and Hyena. Yeah, we have Pettinger in here. We have, I think this is Yost back here. We got Caroline character. We got Grixley's in here. There's just like, it's a who's who. There's so many. There's a Mild Pain character.
Maybe Audra?
Yep, Audra. There's a bunch that I'm forgetting because I'm bad at name recall. But
I wonder if we could put this up and like label them all those little boxes, like an X-Men spread.
Sick. I'll let you edit this one.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. This is the drunk vision. So, I had the pleasure of doing a reading with Steve and Josh Pettinger, who we'll talk about in a little bit.
Cool.
And they read Steve read bits from this comic, and Josh read a bit from Warm Television. And what I realized was like that was my first reading. And one of the things that I realized is it's so valuable to hear the cartoonist read the comic in their own voice. Because you get a sense of the beats, but you also just get like where their head's at. And, you know, we were saying the handwriting is the voice.
Yeah.
And in that same vein,
the
voice is also the voice. Yeah, exactly right. So my guy shows up a couple times in here. Yeah. We got thanks for the include, Steve.
This is really crisp cartooning also.
It is.
Like this, you can see the influences, but I also think it's its own thing.
It's doing its own thing,
for sure. And it's really sharp, it's really clear, it's really expressive.
I like it.
Great movement. I think a lot of like, if you talk about some of the cartoonists that are the infrastructure maybe from some of the stuff that Steve's exploring, like there's not a lot of movement in it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of this kind of exploration of expressiveness. And
exactly right. So he's pushing it and he's doing his own thing, and I like that a lot. I mean, Steve's got skill. You can see it. It's on every page. And one of the things that I like too is when I first read Perry Midlife, was this character, the Doctor character. Like I absolutely love the Doctor character. So.
Yeah, and I like that he chooses to draw these characters like different, out of continuity or whatever. That's not the wrong word. What's it called? Like in animation.
The style sheet.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like off brand or off
model.
Off model. Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy's like a Muppet.
Yeah, exactly. He reminded me of the Muppet, like the big one, right? The big monster.
Really satisfying to click like blue in that vein.
And so he meets this dude with a head injury who is his conspiracy theory mouthpiece for this whole segment. These are great books. I encourage.
Colors are really
The colors
impressive,
banging.
too.
I wonder how long it took them to color this.
Yeah, well, it's like the colors are really intentional. Like yellow and purple is a color you don't see often enough.
I know. Well, he did a cover for me, and the coloring in it is brilliant. It looks so nice. It's by the way, that's my best selling issue. It always sells the most.
Shouts out Steve Arnold. So if you need to move some weight, get Steve Arnold on your cover.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for that cover. It looks so cool. Yeah, so go get these Perry books. You will not regret them. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't see those at Partisan. Are they harder to track down? Or?
Well, they didn't just come out, so I got these probably a couple years back now. Time flies. 2022, I got this one.
Yeah, okay.
And then this one I got at the reading, which was 2023. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So far you have a shopping list. We're telling you to get some Nick Bunch books, some Steve Arnold books, and some Caroline Cash books.
Yeah, and if you go to Partner & Son, like they will help you out. There's really clearly labeled like 2 shelves of local stuff, and I mean they have their places jam packed with tons of stuff. Also, shout out to the Eric Svetoft.
We love that
So
stuff.
a bunch of originals on the walls at the moment. They're
So-
really incredible.
Another one that I wanted to mention, unless you got one.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff in here.
Yeah,
Go
pull
for it.
something out. I was going to talk a little bit about Josh Pettinger.
Yeah.
So Josh Pettinger is another, like, I would say, name, rising star. I don't know how you want to, however you quantify it. It's not important, but
Or it's a
recognizable style for sure.
What do we call this? I mean, they're not like sometimes people ask me about this stuff. Like, do people make a living making comics? And I would say like, some of them do. But there are a lot of people in the field who are like recognizable names, and I don't want to call them like celebrities or big stars or whatever. But it's like for whatever reason there are some that are maybe more notable than others, or they're just their names are recognizable outside of the regional space.
I feel like part of that comes with time in. You know, it's like we were looking at those Suspect Devices, and that's a book that was made 10 years ago, and it's got names that we're still seeing in comics today.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I'm seeing all kinds of great names and people that I know. And, you know, being new to the scene, I just felt like, I was like, whoa, wow, like, they've been doing it. So part of it's time in, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I would say, Simon Hanselman, for instance, was like early on Tumblr.
Oh, yeah.
Doing like Tumblr strips from the beginning, you know? So like putting in their time and just getting that critical mass.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm obviously not trying to take anything away from anybody.
No, I didn't think you did. Yeah.
I'm trying to like identify what do you call people who are famous in indie comics. It's
sure.
It's such a different level of fame.
I kinda went
it's
a
hard to
different
call
way.
them like it's good. No, I think that works too.
I went a different way with it. But yeah, I was looking for a cause. And yeah, I guess I don't know what you would call somebody who's a rising star in the game.
Yeah.
But
I guess because you never get to star level really. Like
That's true.
Everyone's always rising.
Well, it's like Klaus said, like being a famous cartoonist is like being the world's most famous badminton player. But I kind of like that. It's like because you
same.
still get a little shine in your community, and like you get recognized for your hard work.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little outside of it. But then you're not like, people don't hound you when you go to the store.
Right.
Or like you can go about your life anonymous. And I think there is something really valuable about anonymity. Like, you know, look at like somebody who's like the level of like a pop star. They're like, I can't go here. I can't go to Best Buy. I can't go to Whole Foods. I can't go anywhere because I just get hounded.
Yeah.
So this was the book that I heard Josh read. And it's about... this character shows up in a lot of Josh's comics, and this character's name is Tedward.
Tedward. Okay,
Tedward.
Yeah.
And so Tedward in this is a television collection agent, meaning the TVs have these little coin slots in them, and you have to put a quarter in, and you get 30 minutes of entertainment. Okay? And he goes around and he collects the money out of the TVs. So everyone has a TV like this, and he goes from door to door collecting the money.
It's like a vending machine.
It's like a vending machine.
Entertainment vending machine.
And when I asked Josh about it, he goes, "You didn't have those?" And I was like, "No, we just had
Wait, that's a
TVs."
real thing?
Yeah. So Josh is from the Isle of Wight.
Okay,
That's in the
where's that?
UK.
Okay.
And the reason why I knew it when we interacted was because Jimi Hendrix had his last concert there. And when I was a teen, I was a huge Hendrix fan. That was like my guy.
Okay.
And so I go, "Oh, like Hendrix." And he's like, "Yeah, that's why do you know that?" That's what he said to me. And so on the Isle of Wight, there's two main professions, like two main areas of commerce, right? You can work in the jails because it's an island, so they have correctional institutions, or you can work in tourism.
Okay.
And so if you're not into one of those, maybe you're collecting quarters out of televisions. I can't say. But
wow, that's fast. This is actually like kind of a genius idea. I was like, this is so weird. It's such a funny idea. But the fact that that's real kind of blows my mind.
well, that's the thing that I appreciate about having seen and heard Josh read the comic is that I understood the humor more, and it became funnier, and it was more engrossing. Like the character is all at once kind of like mysterious and kind of like very I don't want to say simple, but like kind of like what's the television show that I'm thinking of with Barney Fife? You know, it's like he's like kind of
Not all in the family.
no, he was like a sheriff or whatever. Anyway, he's like a good-hearted kind of naive character, right?
Okay.
Who's like has his own set of morals, but it always leads him into trouble because he's like wrestling with it, which I find fascinating. So he goes on these awkward dates. He's looking for love, and it's all centered around these televisions, which is really interesting. And then Power Wash.
Yeah, is there a name?
He's got a different job.
Does he have a different job in every thing?
He might. I haven't read enough of these comics actually.
There's a thing that I've noticed sometimes that I find like really effective when it's done well, which is like you just have a couple angles for drawing something.
Yeah,
it's either straight across, where it's like the ground is flat,
Right.
or it's a close up, or it's tilted. But whenever it's tilted, it's at the same angle.
I see.
And that I think is like a really effective page layout trick, but it's also just, it makes everything like really consistent. Like the characters are almost the same size in those panels,
Right.
except if it's close up. But whenever the angle's different, changed a little bit, showing perspective, it's always the same angle, or it's
Right.
just the same ish. You know, like this diagonal and this diagonal are similar
And the diagonal gives some action.
to this, right? And it breaks up the space. So with these diagonals, you could almost like rule out a diagonal grid across the whole spread.
Interesting.
And anytime something is diagonal, it's the same angle.
I
Like
see what
that,
you're saying,
that works
yeah.
really well.
It's cool. I like the use of black, obviously.
Yeah, really strong.
And it's clean line cartooning, right? Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say? I don't know how you classify this. Does this have a European feel to it a little bit?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, maybe more black on the page than there might be in like
That's fair.
a lot of like a Juice Swart. I don't think uses a whole lot of black, but that's because
Right.
they're also like intentionally made to be in color. So like I think maybe rely more on the color. In it. But yeah, like it just I guess he is European, so that would make sense.
I don't know if the UK considers themselves part of the European Union.
They Brexited their way out of it.
And
So
so
is the Isle of Wight part of Brexit?
I think. Well, I mean, that's a UK proper. I think so.
Okay.
But the Goiter series came before, and I'm not as familiar with the Goiter series. But I will say that when I talked to Josh about this, he was like, "I wish I didn't name it Goiter," and I was like, "Why
It's a
not?"
really gross word.
And he's like, obviously, because when you search for it, you get a bunch of goiters. And I was like, oh, yeah, wow, I didn't even think about that.
It's also just a disgusting word.
So
Like,
when
it's
you're
one of those-
naming your comics, kids, don't name them after, like, human body aberration.
body horror.
Yeah,
stuff.
like body horror, disgusting things. Like,
That's also a word that sounds like exactly what it is. Like if you've
Yeah.
seen a goiter, you're like that's the sound effect it makes just existing.
yeah, so don't name your comic, like, prolapsed anus. or something.
Unless you're like Johnny Ryan or something.
Yeah, unless you're Johnny Ryan. Which, by the way, what's the name of that book? Like, Who Fucked My Horse? Is that what?
No,
it's?
I think it's Fuck My Son.
Well, Fuck My Son is one, but there's one called Who Fucked My Horse.
No, I don't know. He's got a lot of books. I want to read Fat Cop. That's the newest one.
Fat Cop, I definitely want to
Fat
read.
Cop looks awesome.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Molly's work because Molly is a very talented cartoonist, and I love their line. They're always exploring like really cool self-portraiture, and in here we're seeing a little mix of
It's
Molly.
like sketchbook stuff.
Yeah, it's like sketchbook stuff, and it could definitely go in our sketchbook zine issue. But half of this is Molly, and half of this is Nate. So, I mean, this is great. Like the likeness, the cartoon likeness that she gets is amazing. Anyway, I wanted to highlight their work.
This.
Yeah, I like this little like squirrel person too. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Looks like Wile E. Coyote Squirrel.
I wanted to highlight their work because it's beautiful.
This is really nice. This is great too. This is I think we talked about it in the sketchbook scene. Is like sometimes you can kind of see whose work the artist has been looking at by looking at their sketchbook.
Oh, sure.
Like I was just been, I just talked about Crumb earlier, but like that makes me want to draw like Crumb. So like I'm going to explore those kind of textures and lines a little bit. So sometimes when you look at someone else, a cartoonist's other sketchbook, you can tell they've been reading like someone else's work recently.
For sure.
And they were kind of exploring that style a little bit.
I will say that. What was I going to say? I was doing. I was teaching a little bit from Jean Girard yesterday, like showing the Mobius line.
Yeah, he's got so many different lines.
He does, but it's not. But he's in a lot of it. He's using a similar kind of texture, where it's like open forms with just a little bit of hatching. Like he doesn't go hard on like the brush,
right? Yeah,
or anything like that. Like it's very much a pen.
And you get all these signed. That's a good idea.
Well, I ask him to sign them when they can, and a lot of times they just sign them. I don't need to ask, but I like a little drawing in there. I like a little drawing in there. It's nice.
Yeah. I started trying to leave space, like a little box.
I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at leaving space on the thing. But
yeah. I try to leave like a little box or a little area or something to put a little doodle in.
I know.
Because it limits. Like otherwise, you're like, I got a whole title page I can draw, and it's too big.
You're right.
And so it gives you like nice little space to just like keep it consistent. I like all that stuff.
Let's look at this actually.
Yeah, this I read on the bus on the way home too. This is pretty wild. It's one part of an ongoing story. It's really gruesome. I love the gore in this. If you're into like kind of gross.
Yeah,
like,
it's
body
wild
horror stuff. Like, well, go back. There's the second page has like the guy's head exploding. Yeah, look at that.
That's intense.
That's wild. But yeah, like really nice brushwork, like really clean.
It looks great.
Cartooning. This has a flat gray, which we talked once before about how like dot gray looks better, but I actually think this flat gray looks really, really nice.
Yeah, it's working.
Whenever you get an off-white paper too, which I like.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, fine.
Yeah, I do like the paper stock. It's nice. I print on the off-white too.
Yeah, this the premise of this is kind of like, it's kind of like Scanners, I guess. Have you seen Cronenberg's Scanners?
I don't think so.
It's like the idea is that like people have this power. It's not really explained what it is, but these like teenagers have this power to just like kind of make people's heads explode.
Okay.
And in Scanners, it's this kind of like the government cover-up thing where they're trying to take out all these people and all that stuff. But in this, it's more like just petty teenage shit. So like,
right.
If somebody like wants to fuck someone's girlfriend, like you're gonna blow their head up, and then because you blew their head up, they're gonna want to blow your head up.
Right.
And it's not played for laughs, which I like.
Yeah.
Like it's really played as in like these are teenage emotions, and like what would happen if these young people had this like incredibly brutal mental power. It's a neat premise. I'm curious to see where it goes.
I think about that a lot too with like Black Hole.
Oh yeah.
Like the Charles Burns thing. It's like, is that a metaphor for just coming of age? It's like for adolescence. It's like the idea that your powers develop during adolescence. Is that just the outpouring of emotion, like in your inability to deal with it as you like become. You go through your teenage years. Like,
yeah.
It's so raucous, right? Like you're changing so much. It's so weird. Everything feels crazy.
Yeah. And it's so much more interesting to me than something like Spider-Man, which is like, it's not actually talking about any of the teenage stuff at all. Like it's just using a teenager and the jizz analogy to just like,
like. Well, I mean, to that end, you have to remember that like Marvel's not trying to. They're not trying to expand consciousness.
No, of course not.
That's like stuff that came out of the ideas that started in the 50s and 60s, right?
Yeah. I did want to talk about this real quick, which I think, I got this on the Partners in Sun local shelf. I think this person is in Philadelphia. I'm not completely sure. Animations by Ben on Instagram. But this I found super charming and really funny. Just little kind of 4-panel gag things. I assume these are very social media friendly. I don't know if they're out there or not. But I was unfamiliar with this person's work until I saw this book, and just really enjoyed it. Some Cleveland Cavaliers fan tried to eat a chicken nugget every time the Denver Nuggets scored a point. His goal was to eat more nuggets than points that the Nuggets scored, which he thought would help his team win. He ended up eating 115 nuggets. Unfortunately, the Denver Nuggets scored 125 and he lost the challenge.
Did you hear about that guy that died because he ate too many chicken nuggets? No. That might be that same guy.
Maybe. But it's these funny little factoids. I don't know. And they're just like, this is such a tiny, cute little dumb... Not dumb. Dumb is the wrong word. Sorry, I said that.
Well, like...
but it's a tiny, cute little just fun... It's just fun thing.
Yeah,
like you pick this up and I was like... I read this on the bus on the way home too. And I was just like laughing out loud to myself. Just a delightful little... perfect little comic treat. Just a little something full of these little factoids.
That's a good note to end on.
Yeah, I think.
I
thought it was great.
It's been Philly has a great scene. Every time I go, I love it. I want to go more. People ask me if I'm from Philly sometimes. They go, "Are you from Philly?"
You got a Philly vibe?
And I go, "No." And they go, "Well, you're always down there." And I go, "Well, I go where the comics are happening." You know, if the comics are happening, then I'm gonna go down there. But you know, get your Dinnix and like pull up your pants and let's make some comics.
Yeah.
Dinnix is a sandwich place.
I was gonna
by
say,
the way.
where's Dinnix?
Dinnix does this like the real Philly sandwich, you know, is like the roast pork with the broccoli rabe and the provolone cheese. Oh, it's out of this world.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, it's not a cheesesteak. I thought that was the real Philly.
Well, you know, it's just like how, I mean, it's but cheesesteaks played out, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't fuck with cheese.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so how often if you live in Philly, how often do you think you're really gonna eat cheesecake? Cheesecake?
Cheesesteak and a cheesecake. Oh god.
Cheesecake.
I would literally
Cheesesteak.
I wanted to say, we were talking about Philly scenes and stuff in general. This at the top. We want to know like what other scenes are out there. Like the big cities have them all. Like I guess there's LA scenes probably there, but we know there's New York, there's Philly, there's Chicago, there's all these other places. But like, if you're in an area, or like if you know about an area that has like cool group of people we never heard of before, like we want to know what the scene is like in Duluth.
Yeah, give us shouts. You know, Kentucky. I know I have some people in Kentucky that I want to check out their work. Mm-hmm. I know we want to check out Ohio. Yeah, right.
Who's making comics in like Mississippi? Like I want to read.
Absolutely.
That shit.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see some stuff from the desert. Let's see some stuff from the Pacific Northwest.
I'm sure it's out there.
Absolutely. There's people making comics everywhere, right?
Yeah. All right, well, hit us up if you got a secret in.
Yeah, reach out. Help us shine a light on your community, on your comics community.
Yeah, for real. All right,
we'll see you next time.
All right, peace.
Toodles.
Toodles.